pleasure and pride once more that I'm going to call on our next speaker. Gary is one of our members, and he's the third in the last 3 months to be one of our members. Well, he's not we've had 3 members of ours speak in the last 3 months, and that gives us great pride and joy. Now, Gary is a bit of an adventurer, and he's a motivator, an initiator, and he's also a good member of this organisation of ours, supported by his wife Jeanette. I'm not going to go into great detail about this. You've seen it in the newsletter. It's been a very exciting talk. It's a real adventure. So Gary, would you lead us into the talk, please?
Thank you everyone for attending this afternoon and deciding to come on this journey to the lost world. I should make an apology really, because I think I misled everybody. It wasn't this past couple of weeks or months. In fact, it was 2007. But I'll tell you more about that later. A couple of excuses first. When I go on the holidays, I always take a camera and I take lots of pictures, but I don't really take them with the talk in mind. So sometimes I have to be a little bit clever with juggling them. And this type of holiday trekking is not really sort of an environment cameras like anyway. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is that I'm making excuses for some of the poorer pictures and the reasons why I pitched a couple off the internet. So that explains that. I think what I'll take you on now is that 10 years ago this Christmas I retired and started to think about doing something which I've always wanted to do, to go to some of the off-the-beaten track places. And this was the first large or 2-week holiday, because the year I retired, I was going trekking in the Cape Verde Islands, and then weeks before I ruptured my Achilles tendon. So that put a stop to that. The following year I took advantage of a holiday I found trekking into the Sahara, but it came with a camel. So you could walk as much as you wished, and you could ride as much. So if you've got a dodgy leg, it seemed a good idea. But that proved okay. And so the following year, in November 2007, I booked a 2-week, fairly strenuous holiday. I didn't really know what I was letting myself in for. All sort of trekking holidays are a bit of a one-off. And so I'll take you through. So that's arriving in Caracas, in the capital of Venezuela. You can see some really unusual sights, which is the 2 halves of life in Caracas. And this was a unique situation we were given when we landed, because in this type of holiday you don't know who you're traveling with, and you meet at the airport at that end. And we also met our head guide, and we had this leaflet given to us warning that traveling in Venezuela is not a safe occupation. As foreigners, you're a prime target, and don't bother going to the police, because they don't bother anyway. Kidnappings have increased, and it's become one of the top 5 murder capitals of the world. So it's the only time I've ever sort of been given a leaflet like that. And to show where we go, it is Caracas here, the capital. And we had this journey across the Orinoco wetlands here, and through places like the old El Dorado mining town, and we come to this part of the national park here, which is on the borders of Guyana and Brazil. It's quite an extensive area, and for those who's not too sure, Brazil is just on the top of Southern Africa. So we arrived. We had a day and a half bumpy bus ride. We got to know each other. There was 15 of us in total, and we just sort of fell asleep as soon as we got to this base camp. And there was a nice river outside for a 5:30 in the morning wash. and you had to make sure you didn't go down the plug holes, because there was a very large plug hole at the bottom end there. We had a sturdy breakfast, getting ready for the camp, and then the fun began, because we all had to organise ourselves, and it was made clear that the first 6 days of the trek, whatever you wished to take, you had to carry. And the rest of your luggage was going to be stored for a future meeting at point. There was two options. You could hire a porter, or you could decide to carry it yourself. I, for some reason, was very decided that I was going to carry it myself. Jeanette warned me not to carry it myself, because you have quite a large 65-litre sack, and they weigh them to make sure that when you hire a porter, and at the last minute, Providence prevailed, and this American guy said, how about sharing a porter? So we gave 15 kilos each, offloaded, and that was one of the best things I'd ever done in my life. Because later on I was really sort of getting pleased with myself. So this is the type of packs, and that's a young lady, the second one there, that they take. So when you arrive in Venezuela, that's your normal pack. So they've obviously got a lot of bits of other kit, probably food or whatever for the trip. That was the team that we were going to find the dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs were living. The dinosaurs were living up on the top there, because that's Mount Roraima on the top, and that one there is where the devils live, Kukulkanan. It looks flat. The savannah looks extremely flat, but it really isn't flat at all. There's a lot of these very wearing up and down situations. You always make a very early start, but because when the sun comes up, it really sort of gets hot. And in these little valleys where the streams are, it's very nice to get a little shade and a fresh. That was, and the guys like to have funny names, I think is the best way of thinking of it. So this guy liked to be called Odd Job, and obviously a James Bond fan. And so this is Kukulkanan Tupui. Tupui is the native Indian language for home of the gods. So all the Tupuis is where the gods reside up on the top. And that's the one that we're going up. But it's 5 miles wide and 6 miles or so long, because it's 30 square miles or whatever, I think, in surface area. And it's by far the highest as well. It's at 9,300 feet. And there was vertical walls that come from the tropical side, just sheer up. Possibly I should explain to you that how they form is very puzzling, because if you've been to the Dolomites, you see the Dolomites, and very, very impressive, but they are jagged. They're not flat tabletops, whatever. And this apparently was a huge sandstone covering that came from the Amazon basin up to the Atlantic coast, and some of the oldest rocks in the world, because they're 2.5 billion years old. But obviously in softer areas, it had eroded away, leaving these islands which we call Tupuis. The other thing I should tell you, possibly, obviously they are islands for vegetation. They are ecological islands, so that they have their own distinctive plants and whatever. We have to cross 5 rivers, and this was the first one coming up. Always a nice situation, because you get wet. When it's very hot, I love getting wet. And at the end of the first day, this was our camp down this road here. And my tent, they're 2-man tents, I should explain, and in in most exhibitions I've always shared a tent, but because obviously we were 15, one person had a solo tent, and because of my age, I think they granted me that. So I had a solo tent for the 6 days we were camping, and it was a very nice tent, but the bed was a bit firm as I got there. But very nice sunsets and whatever. This was the highlight of the day, the dinner, and as I said to Carlos, I hope Jeanette has told you what I like on the menu, but I don't think he took much notice of it really, but he was a good cook. Crossing the river is a problem. It doesn't look very much, but it's quite deep in places. There's pockets of it, it's too rolling, and there's some very large rocks around the place, and they're all slippery and whatever. So we try various methods of crossing. The porters just plough through with their walking boots on, which is something I would never do. But if you've got just your bare feet, they are fairly tender. But I found that by leaving my socks on, my walking socks, that was a good method, a halfway house for dealing with the rocks in the water. And when we forded a much bigger river, which you didn't play around taking pictures with too much, what they did was they put a rope across the river, and you just hung onto the rope as you walked across. I'm not into flora greatly, but there were some very nice flowers along the way, and I did stop to take one or two of the pictures, and we came across this ant colony because there's a lot of termite mounds around the place, and porcupines visit these people and for the ants and whatever. And we came across this stone, and I think the guide was in a jovial mood and wound everybody up that they were bullet ants. They look like bullet ants because they're getting on for an inch, black, inch-long ant. But the bullet ant has a strong venom, and apparently, if you're bitten by one of those, or I'm not too sure if it's sprayed, but you certainly think you've been shot, and it's very active for a day or two. I think it was a leaf cutter ant, but I didn't stay around to ask him. So, but they were taking flowers. I've seen leaf cutter ants before, but I've never seen them with flower, with blossom along the way. Also found this little green snake crossing my path, and he seemed quite friendly. Not to be bothered, but there are quite a number of snakes, but it's more in the river area. And then you tend to think, well, okay, if there's less water in the river, it's that much easier, but it's not. But again, it's a nice time to go and have a little bath along your own or whatever, because there's some very big rocks there. And I'm not too sure. Oh, here we are. So photograph doesn't really do the 3D topography justice in some way, because it is quite hilly along the way. And I put down there's a porter there, zooming up there, and was I glad that he had half my kit or whatever. But the porters were amazing, because and that's wherever you go. I really experienced porters in the Himalayas, and those guys carry enormous loads, a greater load than these guys were prepared to do. But they were amazing, because we would leave camp fairly early. They would take the tents down, pack everything up, and then within an hour or two they were zooming past us to get to the next camp, to put the tents back up and get the food going or whatever. And we were still struggling along the way, so they are quite different. You do get illnesses as well. People do get tummy upsets and all sorts of bits and pieces where they feel off colour. And on this particular day, we had two people who felt that they couldn't really stand up, but they still had to walk 9 or 10 miles, and all uphill, and all in a very hot situation with virtually no shade. So we always had Carlos, the head guide, up in front, and at least 2 guides at the back end for people who weren't feeling too well. And they actually, when we got to this particular camp, where the tents were all set up, and they came in 2 hours after we'd had our meal. So supported by, each one was supported by a porter. So at the end of the day, there were no taxis. You have to do it. So the following day, we were able to see where we were going actually in the climbing part. This is all quite tropical, dense forest, and again, as I say, it's a lot steeper than what you see there. And this is the staircase it makes this tepui able to, without being a professional serious climber, people can access, shall we say. It was first discovered by one of those wonderful Victorian gentlemen who was obviously had plenty of money, but he was an explorer, he was an author, a collector, he did a little bit of everything, and he ended up being the governor of Fiji, which sounds a very nice job for the last 6 or 7 years, I think it is. And his name was Sir Everett Thu. And he was the first person to actually climb this. And of course then, when the reports came back to the UK, and then Sir Arthur Conan Doyle took it up for his classic adventure, The Lost World. And that's a closer look at, it doesn't look awfully much, but believe me, it did get a bit tricky. One of the noticeable things is the weather changes in 5 minutes in so much that there's an awful lot of moisture comes from the Amazon basin, it gets washed up against this. It's full of water, and if you don't like being wet, this is not the place to go. But it's quite hot, it's very humid. To me, I found it quite refreshing. But so the camp we just left was here, and we'd come all the way down through here, and this is the start of the climb. It's fairly thick jungle-type vegetation to start. Then the rock starts appearing. You can see 1 or 2 have that sort of capes on to protect them. I found the wide-brimmed hat ideal because in the sunny parts, if you found some water, you could dunk it in the water, put it over, and it gradually seeped over you, and was fairly refreshing. It got a little bit slippery, but you can see the guy who's giving the hand is the porter with all the kit on his back. So, but of course they were quite used to it. It just went up. You can see we're going to come to the 1,200-foot rock face fairly soon, but it is very, very thick. If you can't really get off the path, etc. And not only is the humidity and the moisture, so it's called a cloud forest condition, but there's an awful lot of water coming off the top as well, all over the place. And there's me thinking, God, is this a stop yet or not? But anyway, we still carry on across, and it gets a bit rocky from here on in. And you can't see because, as I said earlier on, from a photography point of view, it's a fairly harsh condition. There's water coming all over the place. And so all you do is get foggy pictures, but if you want some pictures, that's what they are. It starts clearing when we get near the top, and this is called the gate, and it winds its way up through here, and then you come out on top. Actually, this picture shows that a lot of us actually go in here, but it's a bit small. That's once I've got at the top, that's me looking down, and seeing the others arriving. But as you can see, the mist sort of stops around there. And when we get to the top, or virtually to the top, that's all our troop going up here. It is really a fascinating jungle because it's all rock, it's all vegetation, but the vegetation is very specialised, obviously, to that. The bromeliads and the what's the ones with the cancer flies, the butterflies, the the tube ones, and it'll come to me in a while. Pitcher plants type things. That's right. Because the surface up here is arid in one way, so much that there's no soil, there's stone dust, and that's about it. And everything gets washed off and it just falls over the water. So there's no build of humus at all for these pitcher type plants or the bromeliads, which just quite happy in water. We're now looking for dinosaurs, obviously, the first thing you would do. And I thought I'd obviously found one, but it wasn't to be. This one I was quite interested because it looks like a baby whale to me. And then if you're just eroding rock away, how does you've got this ledge on here and you've got it on supported on there, and you've got it on there. So where did that bit come from? It's quite surprising, some of these things in nature which. What have I got to? Right, so we come to our hotel for 2 nights. I couldn't believe we were going to pitch in this bit of a shelf. It was more like a walkway than anything. We had this towering cliff above us. Anyway, the porters pitched the tent. They were at a bit of an angle, but we had something to had a meal, and that was basically what we were looking for. Out walking, it's a very dangerous area to walk because of this mist and cloud that suddenly appears. It does, and once it blankets it, you really can't see your hand in front of yourself. So you have to be careful on the weather conditions as well as knowing where you are with it. And that gives you some idea that could just rise up and cover the top, and there's virtually nothing you can see. But walking above the clouds like that is absolutely super. This is not my picture, this is an internet picture, but it does show it on a clear rock on a clear day. It's the sights, whereas we were in this park, and it says, I hope that's a parachute I'm wearing, because every time I look at that, I get a funny feeling. And that's it on a clear day. Again, that's not my picture. So I don't think I could do that twice. The place is known for its peculiar geological eroded shapes and sizes, and possibly one of the stories that fed back to Arthur Conan Doyle was that it had these shapes, and they obviously do look a bit intriguing in many ways. In places it's very difficult to walk, so you think you're going over there, but you might have to go all the way around here to get to the place you're going, because you just cannot walk. I walked in areas where you get grass, tufts of grass, and that's really, in a boggy situation, that's really hard. But this was virtually impossible to walk across. You probably can't see from there, but there's a party of us coming down through here, and along, we're going to walk along here. I used to go on and take pictures, knowing more or less the direction we were going. But more than once, Carlos got a bit concerned about where I disappeared to. You can see that we scramble along some of these sides here. and you can see that's how they get some of these formations, I don't know. For people into plants, I thought that was very, very attractive. I have no idea what it is, but it really sort of took, it's a very nice colour and a very nice shape along the way. And I tried to put some plants in for people. That's just a collage of various types of plants. The pitcher plants, which you were telling me about, is you can see them back here. And they're very colourful. They're not big plants, but they're very colourful plants. And as I say, everything is sitting in water. That's all water based along there. There's a problem with this. Right. Yes. There's what I was thinking of. You can see they're very colourful, and they just grow out of crevasses, and only these two types of basic plants seem to survive up there. They also have an indigenous frog, which I never saw, but I read about it's different from any other frog, even down in the jungles, because the forest floor is like a million miles away from the top of these places. So, as I said, my solo tent, that was a guy I used to walk with quite a lot, because a lot of people don't realise that you, in these situations, you don't walk with a person. I mean, you can do, but most people prefer to walk solo, because everybody's speed is slightly different. So, and everybody's sort of rest situation. We were told to walk in an hour, every hour walking, you must stop for at least 5 to 10 minutes to have a water stop and whatever. But you would walk with somebody for 10 or 15 minutes, and then they would either slow down or go on or whatever. And so Jonathan I used to walk a lot with. This was the toilet. A lot of people think, well, what do you do with, like if you're a spaceman but in these national parks, everything that goes up has got to be taken back down. So you can leave nothing behind. And so that was the large receptacle. I don't know which of the board had the job of taking that back down, but it was a fact of life, or national parks, or whatever. Some of the strange shapes, you had these long linear rocks which were standing out like fingers, and you had this other character here which intrigued me. Where water was, you saw this what looked like sandy soil, but it wasn't. It was just stone dust, and it was basically a mud concoction, etc. But the one I was just showing you is up on there. So I'm walking around this guy, and it looks like a turtle to me. And then that's a fairly up close one. And I think, how does that happen? It's just mesmerising how you can picture. How did that evolve standing on a rock like that? So it's part of the rock. It's not just sitting on it. Another one there with a hole in, which attracted me, and Carlos on this particular afternoon, Carlos guy had organised but the rain came in, and I'm not going to go with that, so I decided to opt out. But 10 minutes after they left, it brightened up again, and I thought I'd go and take some pictures of these shapes. But there's this very important thing, that even the length of this room, if the cloud comes in, you really have to know which way to walk, because otherwise you might not be a good result. I wanted to get to that one. I made a big effort, but the conditions underfoot were very, very difficult, and it was 20 yards away, but to get to it was quite a feat. But I did. thought that would look nice in the garden. But I'm very intrigued by some of these geological shapes. We've come into the story of Harry Angel, who was the sort of modern or the Western world sort of discoverer of the falls. But he used to fly. He's a tremendous story about him. But he used to fly over this place as like a bush pilot because there was always some geologist going somewhere over. And he was convinced that these were rivers of gold on these tepuis. And you can see why. If you're flying over there and you see these colours, I can imagine that why he thought these were actually rivers of gold and diamonds as well. Because you had these beds, and what's coming up now is that's the bath day. We had decided that was a swimming pool and a sort of multitude bath situation, which was very good actually, because washing is a bit of a thing you have to keep an eye on. But we went to this small canyon. We take there by cars on this canyon, and there you have all these wonderful crystals, like you see in some very upmarket shops, these very large crystals, whatever. They cost an arm and a leg, and they were all just lying around the place here. And I thought, oh my gosh, look at that! It's just loads of them lying around. And then I thought, wow, look at that one, that's twice as big. It was really thrilling to see. Apparently there's a very big mine or a very big deposit on one of the tepuis. Time to go home. We were looking at this weather, because the weather determines so much here, and it changes so quickly. As I say, what goes up has to come down. So we have to start making our way down. This is the top of the gate, going down. And of course, water is a problem really, because you have to take advantage of. I had a 2-litre camel, which is just a plastic bag with a tube, and you put it through your sack, and it's right by the side of your mouth, so you can use it. But you have to put iodine tablets, which I believe are now frowned on, but on that holiday I had iodine tablets. You just filled up with water, sterilised your water, give it 10 minutes and then start, you could drink it or whatever. You can see the water coming off the top there. And this gives you, I left this here, it's a very poor picture, but it's the best you can get in such a foggy, misty, humid condition. But you see the amount of rock that you have to come down is not nice paths to come down. But now all of a sudden you come down through the tropical side, and you're really going to come out on the savanna, which is on the bottom side of it, and half the time the path is the watercourse, so you're walking in water quite a lot of the time as well. And then we get back to our base camp here, and as you can see, the feast that we all have in these places. Strawberry jam or whatever is really good. And then we came back to this. This is the back across the back of the savannah. I've got down here, which I thought it might be of interest to. Saturday, going down day, leave camp in the early part with Paolo because she's very slow, and it gives me a chance to climb around and take pictures. The main party arrives and we descend together. It's all rock, very steep, and loads of water from everywhere, from yesterday's rain. We meet the waterfall early, and I fill my camel and add pills. It's hard work climbing down into the cloud forest. And then that's back at base camp where we started, and they didn't even have a chair for us to sit down. And that was the following part of that was after lunch. We set off across the Grand Savannah river crossing with Jordan. The sun is baking, and he is too fast for me, so I tell him to go on, and I walk at my own pace. When I get to the river, I am bushed. I soak my feet and wash my shirt. It's hard work to get started for the next river about 2 miles away. Again, it's not easy getting the boots on and off to wade across to the camp. Hot meal and soup. I turn in at 8 o'clock as we have covered 10 miles today and from the top down, and we have a 6 a.m. start for 9 miles tomorrow. So that gives you an idea of the holiday side of it. So we come to this little airport to fly now, because this is the only way of covering the ground. And they call it, it's in 3 languages, the friendly airport, which I thought was very nice, the friendly airport. But they all, this is your cars, these 5-seater Cessnas are everywhere. Every village of the side has got a little strip where these things land. And we fly over and see 1 or 2 other tepuis, which, how would you get at that, eh? And they're very well known. I didn't see this is an internet picture of sinkholes, because the limestone underneath collapses and the sudden hole appears, like in people's houses around the UK lately. Some are full of water, as you can see up there, and some have just got vegetation. But they're about 1,000 feet across and 1,000 feet deep, so they're not just potholes, these things. Right, we're off on 4 wheels for a change, a little bit of duty-free shopping along the way with whatever beads you want to buy. This is our mode of transport. I very quickly realised, not being a wonderful traveller, that the passenger seat is for me, so I can put my sack on it there. The guides go up on the top, and they travel on the top, and the rest of us are in the back of the truck. The windscreens crack all over the place. That's lunch in the windscreen there, the jam sandwiches. One of the guides at the top has got his foot on the windscreen, and it's off we go, and we're looking for the river. We're boarding, I've got there boarding at high water, because you have a couple of days rain and you've got flood conditions, and you can see the grass growing through the riverbank. Normally is further out or whatever. There's a variety of canoes that you pass along the way, or what the local village has got. And this is one that we were in, and you can't quite see it really on there, but that's a large, what do they call these? Machete, that's right, yeah. A large machete, that guy is just sort of put it out of view. And I happen to be around the back of it, going, right, I'm not going to disagree with that bloke. Life is fairly basic, as you can see, and they don't have an awful lot of anything, one thing. This was intriguing me, this was because, we've all done campfires along the way, but the native campfire there is totally different from piling wood on top of wood on top. You have 3 stones, 1, 2, 3, and then you have 3 channels, and you keep pushing your piece of wood in. So obviously the wood is a smouldering type of wood or whatever, because you just give it a kick every half an hour, and you have a fire, continual fire. So I've never seen that before. Unfortunately, there was a lot of the river was being up, and as you can see, there's a tree growing up there, so it was high water, and we were told that with the weight in the canoe of our luggage and us, we had to get out and walk across this little peninsula. And that's the canoe over there, obviously much lighter. It's got a 40 horsepower engine on it, I must tell you. So we were on foot now to go past some of these rapids. And there's quite a lot of rapids along the way. You can just see the canoe above it up there. And what do we come across after we've been walking about a while? And what do we come across? Wow, a DC-3 Dakota. Just in the field, or whatever, or the savannah. And these sorts of things really, I got them there, what a big boy's toy. Absolutely fabulous. And I think, how is there a decoder line in the middle here? But apparently the reason is that they get a problem. It's so sparsely populated that they get a problem. And there's a lot of mineral wealth there that they get sort of pirate guys digging for diamonds and all sorts of things or whatever. And the government sent the army in to evict these guys, and they had 3 planes, but with the parts of this one, they could take away 2 others, fly away with 2 planes in their kit, and what they couldn't do had to be left behind. And so this was the plane that was cannibalized and left behind. So this was a local farmer, not far away. You can see his spare canoe here. And I thought, oh, this is a strange washing up boat. And it's obviously something like a 100-gallon fuel tank off the aeroplane that he's just cut around the top, and it makes a good sort of washing up facility or whatever. Lots of canoes that have passed their sell-by date as we go, and there wasn't many swimmers other than me. Sarah she was a dentist in Brighton, and but she was the only other person I think that went swimming in the river, whatever, and liked swimming. This was we have to fight our way upriver now, and the rivers are like you would think of streams in so much. There's lots of different rivers, and there's not just the one major river. There's lots of ones that feed off it, and we stopped for a comfort stop, which is you occasionally get a request to pull in, and we was on this small slash and burn, supposedly tobacco farm. I'm not too sure the difference between tobacco and maybe some of the other plants which are much more valuable. But anyway, we just had a little nose, and as you can see, it's not easy to get to anyway. And then, of course, occasionally you really got a washout with a thunderstorm, and there were some big thunderstorms when the lightning's overhead, because it's black, and so I'm not too sure if this is where the rapids are. All my money was wet, and everything was wet. My passport was wet, everything was soaking wet. And I'm not too sure, because we had, I'll know when I go on a little bit further, but we had one situation where the first river camp we came to, there was a rapids just 100 yards away, which were quite formidable rapids, but we had to go through them to get to land. And the first canoe did it all right, but our guy was a little bit clever, and the next thing you know, we were like the Oxford boat race guys, up to their waists in water, and the boat is under the water. So everybody got wet. My concern was my cameras, obviously. The first of the 3 nights, hammock nights, that was quite an experience. The first time I really had to persevere with hammocks, because once you know how to get in and stay in it, it's a very comfortable way of sleeping, and you can get an awful lot of people sleeping next to each other in hammock situations, i.e. the old British Navy, I suppose. When we were off, then the rivers are getting higher and higher, so the rivers are getting more shallow, and we have to get rid of our luggage. And what they do is they stop, find a suitable place, just off-road the cases. I got left luggage here, which it was, and they would just put a big plastic sheet over it and say, right, we'll come back in 3 or 4 days and pick it back up. Which was a bit surprising, but yes, there's nobody there, so why not? And that's us from, I'm just 6 feet in there, you can see the jungle, you can't really see the canoe that easy. So off we go now, somewhat lighter, speeding up, and that's the first, no, that's not the first view, That's the car before the rapids, right? So you can see this is very nice and placid, lovely river to canoe in, and this is not looking too good. We get there fairly close, and it starts tuning up, and it turns into this situation. So I think this is the point where the canoe actually went in the water. It should have been like that, but it wasn't like that, and in the panic, nobody took any pictures. But we had to dry everything out. Everything we had was wet, as I say, including my money, my passport, or some of the stamps run in the passport, and all the maps, all the bits and pieces. And it was very nice and warm, obviously, so it didn't take that long to dry. Again, back into the hammock situation that night. The meals were, well, as you can see, they were fairly sizable meals that were cooked up, because there was 16 of us with the guide, and then we would go off the following day. One of the guys, it says, one of the guys was still not very happy with the captain, because the guys in charge of the canoes were called captains, and it was still off that he soaked everybody the night before. But we were tearing up the river then, and this is our first view of the Angel Falls. And as we get a bit closer, we can see a bit more detail, etc. Our camp is on this side of the river, but it's shallow enough to wade across, and the falls are on the other side there. The jungle is not sort of hack your way through jungle, it's quite tall and light. So I put these pictures in to show that it's not difficult to walk through this type of situation. And then when we get up to the falls, there's a big rock, bare rock situation where you can picture the falls, but it's very difficult to picture the falls in one camera from one spot. And there was an awful lot of water coming off it, etc. So it's only the one thing you take the pictures of, really. So there was a lot of pictures taken of the falls. That's an internet picture taken from the top. That's the river that we came up over here, and obviously we walked up this way to a high point, which is somewhere down there. But you always ask the question, I wonder what it's like on the top. This is Harry Angel, and you won't be able to read that, but it says, they are the world's highest uninterrupted falls with 2,600, is it, plunge with another 550 feet below the actual contact, first contact. They were unknown to the outside world until American jungle pilot and adventurer Jamie Angel flew over them in 1933 while searching for his rivers of gold. He returned in October 1937 and landed, but his plane's wheels sank in the mud and nosedive, making takeoff impossible. After 2 days of looking for the gold, he and his wife and two friends took 11 days to get down to the nearest Indian settlement. This to prove he has got the largest 250 square miles is the size of the top of it. The first successful overland expedition didn't make it until 1949. So to a lot of us, 1949 is not that a long time ago. So you can see just how isolated they all are. And I was quite intrigued with these old pictures I picked up off the net, etc. But obviously that's where Judy landed up there somewhere. That's the position his plane was left in. And you're a long way from anywhere, and you have to decide, can I get down on this thing? So I can imagine it was quite a bit of excitement around at the time. That was a really good black and white picture where it lay, the plain lay like that for 33 years. And I don't think too many people saw it in that time. This is going back down the falls to the river on the way down. And you can see what I was saying about light. It is really for a jungle or equatorial situation. Carlos with doing his wonderful cooking, and dinner is served, I think, is one way of thinking of that. But you can see the hammocks in the background here, and a lot of younger people there as well. So that's a typical hammock, which rather had a surprising event at some stage, which I've got. After dinner, this is from my journal again. At dinner, the talk is all about Explorers, the company we went with, low standards, but the chicken dinner seemed okay to me. Turned in around 10 o'clock and wake at 3 o'clock to find that I'm actually lying on the floor, wrapped in my hammock, as the knot must have slipped. Carlos is next to me, snoring his head off, so I give him a good shake and wake him up to help me fix it. Back to sleep in 5 minutes. But it's, yes, it was quite an experience, and I'm looking fairly smug in this particular picture itself. I think it must be my first selfie as well, because I just arranged with Carlos on the previous day. One of the party was ill, and one of the party got lost. So back over dinner in the night, the guy who was ill said, "Can I go up in the morning? Is there time?" And Colin, the guy from London, had got lost, because when we got to the riverbank on the far side, we all went tripping up through not particularly dense jungle, as you can see, but he stayed behind to put some sunscreen on, or whatever he thought was important, and within 2 minutes he was gone, and he had no idea, and we didn't realise he was missing, because we were all string out going up the mountain, and when we got to the falls and we were taking pictures, where's Colin? And Carlos then panics then and races back down to try and find him, and he's down, but still at the river, through what I call was his own fault, basically. But anyway, so he wanted to go up the following morning. The other guy wanted to go up. I thought it was an awful long way to go for just one viewing. So I said to Carlos, "Who's going up?" He said, "Well, the captain's taking the 2 up." And I said, "Well, can I go as trail finder behind them?" So he invented a position for myself. And he said, "Yeah, fine." So that's why I was looking smug, because I just arranged that with Carlos, that I would go up with them, and we were a party of 4. I've taken these off the internet. There's a rocky ledge there, and I don't know, I've tried to piece those two together, obviously taking lots of big interruption, very little water coming over here, as you can see, and there is a pool, and you can walk to the pool, and as long as it's in the dry season, you can actually swim under the ancient falls. Not a good idea when it's like that, but where we got to is unknown, because we could be at that level because we were looking down and we were looking up, but whether it was as high up as that rocky ledge there, I don't know. But anyway, so last look at the falls, that was the morning I had a second visit. Then it was full speed downstream to go back. We had to call in, obviously, and I'm glad they remembered where they parked the cases, because I had no idea where they put the luggage. But we soon got that on board, but there was a little hiccup. And when I went searching, why aren't we sort of going, I found out that one of the guys, probably was the mechanic, we damaged the propeller in the shallow water, and he had a big rock there, and he was straightening out the blades of the propeller. So off we go, back down the river. lots of wet water, and we get to this lagoon, which is our more or less our end stop. As you can see, those trees are growing out of the water because it's flood time, etc. But what is interesting is this waterfall sequence here. It's a sequence of 9 waterfalls. Some of them are a little bit back up the river, but the lagoon finishes in this double waterfall. Under most circumstances, with a lot of water, it's 3 waterfalls or total. We pay off our guy. I think we gave him something like 3. I've got a 2,000 boulevard note here, actually, and that's £1. I mean, we're going back a couple of years, so but that is £1. And so we gave him something like 3. We had a tip. We gave him something like 750,000 boulevards between the crowd of us, which they were very pleased with. This is the lagoon, and this is the waterfall. And the fabulous thing about this waterfall is it's incredibly noisy. It's like being behind a jet engine. It's incredibly noisy, and you can walk behind it. And that's our party. I was told, don't take your camera, but everything else I did. And not too wonderful shots, but you can, the amount of water, the roar of it all was, I just couldn't relate. In places you can just sort of vaguely see through it, and then you come out of it. The other side, and there's this very, very large rock, probably the size of this room, which is an island between the two, and then you just walk back through it to the other side. We took advantage. There was talk amongst us there about going on a plane. So I got down here, co-pilot Goose with pilot Maverick Hummingbird, X-red arrows. I got the co-pilot seat actually. The 5 of us went. It's sort of 3 in the back and 2 in front of us, right? And then room for luggage in the slopey bit at the back there. And we paid him £22. I can't remember what it was in boulevards. And this guy was a crazy stunt flyer. We didn't know at the time, but he took us. Get a bargain price of 200,000 boulevards each, approximately £22, and get quickly into a 5-seater Cessna with Hummingbird, our pilot, hurrying to take off before the rain starts. I'm in the co-pilot seat, and my seatbelt is not working. None of the instruments are working on the dusty dashboard, not even the petrol gauge. We zoom over Angel Falls, which took my breath away, followed by lots of figure 8s, very close in, with the plane turning on its wingtips, because that gave everybody a view, shall we say. The top is not bare rock as I expected, but a sort of grassland with dense jungle in places. Unable to take pictures that we had thrown around so much. To finish, our mad Hummingbird pilot goes over the top of the 5,000-foot falls and dives down like the water itself, and does a tight turn at the base. He follows the river back, and we pass over the Salto Falls, which is what you look at. A great 50-minute flight, and then lands over another plane. Once with Mad Max is enough. I mean, I think that's the way they get their thrills, putting the release up people there. That's the little airport, which obviously is very tastefully designed, but I think that's the... So that's the view of the falls as we left, and as you can see, it's an awful lot of water there. That's not my picture, that's just a view of the falls. And then we get to, I'm trying to remember the name of the place there, Cidebar Boulevard, which is where Jimmy's playing. Apparently it was up on the top of the Tapui for 33 years. The Air Force then had their 50th celebrations and said, what could we do? We make a monument. Said, where do we get the plane off? So what they did was they made a small plane and put it up there, took this one apart, like the wings off and various things, and brought it down in a helicopter in pieces and rebuilt it where it is outside the main airport. And we just got a real plane back to Caracas, which was a jet. And then to finish, the Caracas jungle and airport incident. You can see all the slum dwellings right up to the base of the modern part of the city. And the incident that I'm referring to is our friend Colin again. Trafficking in Caracas is mad. We think we are in loads of time as we arrive at the airport 4.5 hours early, but check-in is unbelievably slow, 1.5 hours. Just as we get to passport control, Londoner Colin is forcibly taken away by 2 armed police who think he's carrying drugs inside him. The drugs knew. Found Carlos at the last minute to go with him, because these guys just said, come to me in Spanish, and poor old Colin had no idea what they were talking about, so they just got him in each arm and said, you're coming with us. And he was taken out of the airport in that fire. And so Carlos went within crazy 20-minute ride to some medical centre, stripped him off, x-rayed him, fingerprinted him, and returned him to the airport before boarding took place. And the reason we could only make out was that he was a bit of an introvert guy, he was a bit of a sullen guy, he didn't really sort of mix too well, and he had this habit of walking around looking at the floor. And I mean, there must have been coverage or whatever, and I assume that's the reason why they come and decided to take him away. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is our trip. We didn't see many dinosaurs, but unfortunately, I did what I could for you. Is there any questions anybody wants to ask? Have you got a question, sir? Yes.
Yes, I have. I know you didn't see any dinosaurs, but was there evidence of any animals or birds on the plateau?
It was purely imagination. I'm sure that the rock formations stimulate your imagination, particularly if you see it from away, and you can persuade yourself that is an animal looking up there on the
No,
sky.
I'm saying animals in general.
There's nothing up there except a couple of frogs.
You would have thought that animals and also birds would have found their way up the staircase, and there would have been evidence of them there, but apparently there wasn't.
No, we saw no evidence of virtually any birds. Certainly didn't see this indigenous frog. And no, there's nothing lives up there as far as we know. It is virtually 9,500 feet up. So it's a long way up, and the climate in general is fairly cool.
Yeah.
Those wonderful porters that you had, did you have to pay them a lot of money, Gary? I was wondering, when you said a half a porter, does that mean that you had half of your baggage with them and then you were carrying half of yours?
Yes.
That's the way in which you worked it. And how much did you pay these marvellous people?
I've got an idea, because I can't find it written down. It's £30 for a 30 kilo bag. So this fella and I put 15 kilos in, and obviously paid him £15 in boulevards, yeah. So that would have been about it as far as I know.
For the entire trip?
Yeah, 6 days. Of course, that one didn't relate to the Ancient Falls, but that was purely motorway.
And did anyone turn their ankles after all these treks? Any problems with health?
I think 1 or 2 had a bit of sunburn, 1 or 2 had sort of tummy upsets and normal things, really drinking different water and various things, but nobody really had any difficulties at all, no. You know, the slow ones, there was 1 or 2 girls that were particularly slow, but I didn't mind that because it gave me a rest before you come.
Anyone else?
Do you know how you managed it, Gary? Absolutely amazing. Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, certainly.
I thought that was amazing, like everyone else. But how did you make the decision to take this, to have this experience?
Well, I mean, when I sort of was looking around for some unusual places to go, I can't say I was too familiar with this particular place, but I brought some magazines here, which are just a company which shows the holiday itself and tells you what to do. So you go to certain holiday companies who are this type of holiday they present, where the following year I did Everest Camp, and again, Everest Camp is in there. So all these activity type holidays, there's half a dozen companies in the UK, but with the internet now, companies from Australia and America email me different things that are going on. But in those days, it was just get in touch with an adventure company or explore company, and that's the way I picked it.
Comes down to an adventurous personality, I think.
Is there anyone else? If not, Gary, on behalf of this audience, I'd like to thank you very much for your talk. You're obviously a keen enthusiast for exploring these places. Either that or you're bad. Because what we've witnessed is a real endurance test. And we are very grateful, Gary, for this wonderful presentation. You've given us a few presentations of this type before. I'll be very, very grateful. On behalf of us all, thanks very much.